Hello again.
And we're here. We're back.
We're back. Hi, everybody.
We're back, but we have an empty seat. Here comes Alex.
Here, Alex. Hi, everybody. Thank
Hi.
you for taking the time to come and see us. We had a slight technical glitch, but we're all back with you. So I will hand over to Alex to kick off as the master of ceremonies.
With a little more volume this time.
I'm sorry, everyone. This is we're really having a great day here today. I apologize for everything going on. I want to say welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm sorry that we had a delay. I'm really happy to be here today, and let me start by thanking you for taking the time and attending during one of the craziest times in our industry. I'm joined today by some incredible industry experts. I'll be introducing everybody in just a minute, but I hope everybody's staying safe, everybody's healthy, and hopefully we're going to make it through these trying times. Now, this unfortunate pandemic lockdown may provide some small upside for all of us. There's never been a better time to tune up your production pipeline and optimize it for maximum efficiency. I mean, really, while we're probably all burnt out on long webinar pitches, products, preparing your people for remote working, who's done that? We've all done that. That's not what we're here to talk about today. Today, our goal is to provide what we hope is valuable information, a step-by-step manner over several chapters. And we've broken this up into chapters to make it easier. And we're going to try to show you how investing a small amount of time now can save you a lot of time and aggravation in the future. Our goal is, with everyone working remotely, this is one of the only times that we have and that you'll have to actually work in your facility without upsetting the product or without being constantly interrupted. If your facility or your machine room or your storage network or your clients are mostly sitting idle, this is the time to do it. We believe, and I think all indications are, that we're going to see a restart rush. Some places like Los Angeles, we're hearing that by the 15th of May, under strict rules, we're going to start to see production restart. That means our post-production and our production will get into full gear in a couple weeks after that. So we've got a little bit of time to do that. Today, what we plan on doing is to demonstrate some best practice ideas for optimizing your workflow. And when we go through this, it'll make sense. Again, we've put it into chapters so you can drive through the pieces you want. We're also going to show you some upgrades that we believe can improve the efficiency and help smooth out the workflows that you're working with high-res content. Now, we all know that everybody's workflows are a little different, but these are general rules that we have found and general techniques that can be applied. So today, I want to introduce everybody we have. First thing that I will say is that our host today is Global Distribution. They are a specialist distributor for digital content. They do storage management, archive, display solutions, mostly for media entertainment, surveillance, and what I would say the enterprise. We all live in the enterprise. And I've seen on some of the people who are attending that a lot of us are people that we know. There are a few that we don't know. So if you're wondering what the relationship with Symply and Global is, we are a global distribution brand. First person I'm joined with today is Nick Warburton. He's with Global. He is not only one of the founders and the CTO, but he's all around nice guy and a well-known industry expert. Nick?
Thank you very much, Alex. I'll give you that $10 afterwards.
Thank you.
10 pounds.
Yes,
I'm also joined by the man in the hat. That is our own Michael Johnson. We also call him MJ. He is our resident professional race car driver. When he's not over there driving the track and trying to break brand new prototypes hitting 200 miles an hour, he is our senior director of engineering here at Symply. And Michael has a really incredible background. Not only have we worked together in many storage companies, and not only did he do professional services for some of the largest storage vendors in the world, he came out of our industry. He's done stuff in front of and behind the camera. Luckily, looking at him, you know a lot more behind the camera than in front of the
Mostly
camera.
behind, yes.
We get that a lot. But he is
I
one
have
of
a
the
voice
best
for broadcast
experts.
and a face for radio.
Absolutely. I joined that as well. And he is one of the best experts on StorNext in the world. MJ?
Hi, thanks for having me. Looking forward to bringing forth some knowledge that are helping people, remind people kind of what are we in right now and how are we going to slide back into production full tilt boogie.
Fantastic. Our other victim who joined us is, of course, a Disney fan. He's our own Alan Sanderson. We call him P-Dog for some reason. His claim to fame is his management of his 9-year-old daughter during this lockdown and shut-in. She's already said she wants a new teacher, Alan, so you better really work on that. But he also has incredible technical talents. Not only is he an NAS expert, a storage expert, and remarkably a StorNext expert, he has a very nice British accent to go along with it. So, Alan?
Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for that introduction, Alex. I'm not sure what to say, except looking forward to sharing some knowledge today.
Okay, so with that, we're going to have a couple other guests joining us. We're going to have someone from Addo Technology who's going to drive through really optimizing your clients in a little while. But let's get started and let's just talk about a little bit about what we've want to do here. And I'm going to just give us a little introduction. So our talk today is Around the Kitchen Table with Global Distribution. This is a series of talks that Global has put together to be able to promote best practices and information to the entire network of global customers and anyone really in the media and entertainment industry. Today, our talk is called Tune Up Your Workflow Today and Be Ready for the Production Restart. As I mentioned, we all know it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. We're mostly going to focus on not products, but the talent of the team at Symply. And as I mentioned, we are a global distribution brand. What I really wanted to start with was today's agenda and where we're really driving through 5 critical areas for the restart. And the first area that I really wanted to touch on is a review. So most people know what type of topologies or what type of network they have in their facility. And some people have had the benefit of building that network, driving through that network, really deriving what they could out of it and optimizing it. And others have just, well, I'm working with it. What does it do for me? So what Michael Johnson's going to do is he's going to drive through all of the network topologies that we have in a little hint that will help us when we're talking about optimizing how each works and how we can optimize through them. Just a few tricks in between will help us hopefully get rid of bottlenecks within the network. With that, Michael, let me turn it over to you.
I like that. Drive through. Very good. Good pun. So
there we go.
Well done. So as we know, storage is at the heart of every operation. It's where everything gets uploaded as it gets to the facility, worked on while in the facility, and it's the place you put your final output for your clients. Using the various technologies appropriately will help you make your workflows run more smoothly. SAN, or Storage Area Network, is really the workhorse for the editor. SANs allow for large data files like video to be read and written quickly and in sequence. They're mildly complex, but really once tuned and running, you don't need to do much of anything to them. They just run. The robust nature of the fiber channel protocol allows for massive amounts of data to be delivered with very little overhead and almost no bottlenecks due to limited throughput capabilities. When designed properly, a SAN is your best tool for editing full resolution digital video and film. Network attached storage is another workhorse used in the media and entertainment industry. NAS, as it's more commonly known, is occasionally a lower cost, but unfortunately, typically a lower performance option. Every layer of the system takes up just a little bit more of the available throughput, and it's common to see only about 80% efficiency on a gigabit network. And 10 gig is often worse, with commonly seen 40 to 60% efficiency. Added to the various protocols that allow for data to arrive out of order, causing more delays and ultimately making the editor's job more difficult. This isn't to say there's not a use for NAS in media and entertainment. to be honest, NAS is great for things like transcoders, low-res approval videos for producers or directors, proxy editing, great tool for that, media logging, and even uploading of video from sources where time is really not a major factor. Then we have mixed environments. Now, a mixed environment will use both SAN and NAS. Many facilities we work with all over the world typically have a mixed environment, especially the larger ones. Using the proper tool for the job is really the sign of a smart design. Keeping your still graphics on NAS, while motion graphics and color and editing are typically using the SAN, but all on the same actual storage with different points of access or methods of access is one way we actually pay attention to what the creative staff needs. Knowing your workflow and understanding the best technology to handle the different parts is how we're able to save the facility money and make the most of their increasingly limited budget. So back in the days of Token Ring, some of you may remember that, 10 base T and those huge 500 gigabyte RAID systems, SneakerNet was a good way to get things around the facility. To be fair, the delivery of material to be edited can be considered SneakerNet if they're not transferring it to you digitally. So it actually is still kind of a thing, especially when you look at technologies like Symply Conveyor or FTP. There really is a need for SneakerNet. But with today's high-speed networks, it's less common. However, that shoot off in the desert of Tunisia, or maybe a base camp in the Himalayas, or just somewhere not as accessible, they may not have the ability to upload via the internet. So that SneakerNet option comes into play and is quite useful. To sum it all up, now is the perfect opportunity to look at workflows within your facility. In the following chapters in this webinar, we will offer some suggestions and demonstrate real-world deployment strategies and examples to help determine if and where you can make some improvements. If you still have questions, of course, please schedule some time with our technical team, and we'll help you work your way through those decisions. Alex, you're going to need your microphone up.
I'm sorry about that. I should mention, everybody, if we do have questions during this session, at the bottom of your player, there is a text field that you can enter questions in. And apparently, MJ, some people got smart and entered them. So I'm going to read you a couple questions.
Oh, we have a question. Oh, look at that. We do have questions.
These are the only ones I saw. Nick, did you see any others?
No, I think you've got the ones that are current.
Okay. So the first one is, what percentage of installations were where you see hybrid access storage?
Well, I would say that's really close to 100. When we look at the 100%, just about everyone seems to. Larger facilities tend to embrace it more. The smaller facilities are really doing it, although they don't often realize that, oh, well, yeah, I'm just going to move it over AFP or whatever. I'm going to share on this Mac, and I'm going to send it over to that and get it to the SAN that way. It really is. There are so many facilities out there. I would say in excess of 90% are using some varied level of a hybrid system.
And one more question came in. Let me see if I can get this one right. Are you seeing a greater switch to pure Ethernet installations, including those using it for video editing?
No, not really. I think people are understanding that when you, like I was just talking about, when you're trying to edit over video, it's really that out of order problem. And you get these, the problems with drop frames and such. Ethernet does not typically lend itself well to video editing. Most people are really trying to stick to fiber channel.
Okay, really good. So those are the only questions we had come in. Again, if you have questions, the bottom of your player, there will be a text window. Please ask those questions. With that, let's get back to it and go to our second chapter if we can. Our second area is really more of an area that we've been really concerned with, and it does touch on the Ethernet fiber channel and what works best for everything. It's really balancing clients. And this is something that we see far too often. Many facilities and many work groups grow organically. So it starts out with a great design where someone like a Symply, one of our great integrator partners, will walk in and say, okay, what do you have? What do you want to do? You know, what does your workflow look like? And like everyone else, we try to predict the future, and we usually miss. And what happens is people start with a great facility, and over time, everything becomes unbalanced, and loads become unbalanced, performance and reliability kind of suffer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at how this all works in some real world examples. And again, I'm going to turn it over to you, MJ, to take us through this.
Sure. Well, like you said, it's all about balance. It doesn't matter if you're a colorist, a Foley artist, a race car driver, a politician, or a SAN engineer. Everything we do requires balance to keep things running optimally. In our day-to-day here at Symply, we often field questions from potential clients about how to balance their budgetary constraints with their need for speed and reliability. This opens the door to take a peek at what the facility does, how it does it, and what their goals are. Commonly, editors and colorists are going to be on the most powerful storage and have the fastest access. But those jobs can't effectively be done on highly compressed images. There's more to the calculation really than just raw speed. We've often had the conversation around a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection using SMB as the protocol to access the storage through a NAS with bonded 10, bonded 40, even 100 gigabit connections. We know the overhead of Ethernet and the various protocols involved will result in 400 to 700 megabyte per second range. Then you start adding more editors and multiple streams. Everything really starts to break down. Packets arrive out of order, so the workstation has to wait for those missing items before it can feed the stream to the editing software. Then comes circumstance of the drop frame. Well, ask any editor what they think of a drop frame, and you're likely get an evil stare, along with that sucking sound through the teeth before they unleash a stream of words we probably shouldn't repeat here. While they're getting the throughput they need, they're not getting the low latency these tasks require. And it's a serious issue. One way I often try to help illustrate the problem is you take a look like at a drag strip. In the left lane, weighing in at 40 gigabits a second, we have a top fuel dragster, flames shooting out the pipes, noxious fumes surrounding it. The ground is shaking. In the right lane, weighing in at 16 gigabits per second, we have a beautiful Porsche GT2 RS, gobs of horsepower, but it would take a few of those to equal the power of the dragster. Now they both stage, the lights on the tree run through, and the dragster stalls out. Team comes running out to get it refired and send it down the track. Meanwhile, the GT2 RS has taken the green, launched off the line with zero wheel spin, made a straight and true pass to the end of the quarter mile, and seen victory. The dragster's still being refired as the next GT2 RS comes up to the line, stages, makes a pass, sees victory. The first dragster pulls back from the line, second dragster stages, while a third GT2 RS pulls up to the line. They both take off at the same time, and the dragster wins, but he's out of order, like those video packets. So he loses since the timing and scoring is still waiting for the first dragster. So the first team's car is finally back up and running as the fourth GT2 RS heads down the track, takes off, and they finish at the same time for an effective tie. But in this example, the two dragsters made it down the path at blazing speeds, but out of order. So they messed up timing and scoring system. Meanwhile, the GT2 RS fleet made passes in order very quickly with low latency. That's what Fiber Channel brings you. And that's why we highly recommend editors and colorists access storage through Fiber Channel. But what about the rest of the facility? That's one of the big questions. Many of the remaining jobs can be effectively done over Ethernet. Anyone editing a low-res proxy, doing audio mixes, approval clips, transcoders, can in many cases be effectively done via Ethernet. This brings a balance to the environment. Everyone is able to access the same storage using the proper connection type and protocol and get their job done in the most efficient and effective way possible. One size truly does not fit all. Like a hospital gown, it might fit, but part of my all is hanging out the back. So don't leave your tail hanging out. Use the right connection for the job.
Okay, fantastic, MJ. That's really good. I think the car analogies always work for me. I'm not sure they work for everybody.
I can't do anything without a car analogy, as you know. There's always some kind of car analogy in there.
At least one, and
at least one.
We do appreciate that. And you know, the idea of a balanced client topology and a balanced server topology is something that we think that most people can get to. This is where the tune-ups really come in. You know, we see this all the time. You have a client that's out on fiber channel, and you know, initially they weren't doing a lot of transcoding. Now they're doing a ton of transcoding. That's all they're doing. Let's move that 1 to 10 gig. Let's take the load off of the fiber channel, move it over. You have a client that was doing just a little craft editing, and now all of a sudden that station, you might have upgraded it to a new machine, and now all of a sudden that's got a single 10 gig connection. Well, maybe it's not fast enough to do that multi-stream 4K that you want it to do. So now it's time to do a little more rebalancing in there. Okay, I see one question that came in.
Yeah, so it's just going to say there's a question coming, Alex, for you. So,
okay, thanks, Nick. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is an interesting one. Have you ever told anyone your product isn't right for their installation? Wow, they must think we're technical people. But
well, yeah. Actually, I have. Not just one company, but everywhere I've ever been, I've had to go in and tell someone at some point it's just not the right thing for what you are doing. And I usually get, you know, the dagger stares in the back of the head from the salesperson at that time, but ultimately doing the right thing for the environment for that client and what they're doing. There are times when it's just not the right thing, and I would rather them do the right thing for their environment than try to line my pockets.
Yeah, and I think Symply as a company, we obviously want to build products that fit the industry, but also as a global distribution brand, we realize that there are times when we pass it over and say, maybe you're better off with this. And I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you know, we build like everybody else. It's no such thing as a one size fits all. And we have a lot of different products. In fact, okay, here's my pitch. We have a brand new desk side, incredible Thunderbolt 3 storage product that we call Workspace, and it really fits that bill for a lower priced, if you want to call it, SAN model. It's really an incredible product. Everybody on this call has put in a lot of time in that product, and the rest of the team. Yeah. And I will tell you, it's incredible. It's great for on set. You can't even break it, knock on wood, but it's pretty incredible. Okay, stop with the pitch. One more question.
Stop with the pitching. No, yeah.
Stop the pitches.
Oh, what does it say? Why do other manufacturers, at least they didn't make us that. Why do other manufacturers dodge the latency issues with Ethernet and focus solely on the throughput number?
Ooh, that's a good question for you, Alex. I mean, it's one I can answer, but that's one that, well, we don't have the hour and a half that it usually takes for you to answer that one. So if you can give a short
40 gig is a big shiny number to put on your marketing, isn't it?
Absolutely. You know, we just keep increasing these numbers, but in from the technical sense, they're really not there. I mean, let's just take 40 gig. It's a great example for this. I think we showed a slide there where we're talking about latency, and a lot of people look at that and they'll scratch their head and go, we're really pretty surprised that you're looking at something like 40 gig and you're saying that latency is higher than 10 gig. Well, the reason is the average latency. This is one of the Ethernet things that's really interesting that MJ talked about. Things come in out of order. And part of the problem with 40 gig is it's made up of 4 10 gig legs. And so you have to remember that the way the packet is sent, you have all 4 of the legs having to line up before the packet's sent. So a lot of times you can take 4 1 gig or 410 gig ports.
Get a better performance.
Bond them and get a better performance because they can go in out of order rather than waiting to transfer that 140. And people don't get that. Then they look at 100 and they go, that's got to be fast. Well, that's 425s. So, you know, you've got exactly the same thing. Shiny numbers look good, but throughput's only part of the equation. It's latency. And I'm going to use my car analogy here. There's torque and horsepower. And the old saying is torque moves the mass, horsepower keeps it going. You could have all the horsepower in the world. If you don't have the torque to get it going, it's not going to be there. And that's really the way latency and throughput tend to work together. So shiny
horsepower is how fast you hit the wall. Torque is how far you push the wall. After you hit it.
How hard you hit the wall. Exactly. So, okay. Enough with the car analogies.
Yeah. Next time, Alan and I are going to come up with some other analogies other than car.
I'm not sure there are any other analogies.
We can find a way to analogize homeschooling your 9-year-old child. That'll be a good one. Yeah,
that's a good one. And speaking of that, Alan is going to homeschool all of us in our next segment.
Over to Alan, yeah,
if that's okay.
Well, MJ's going to open it up for us.
I'll start it off. We're gonna so MAMs, DAMs, PAMs, CLAM, SAM. Only one of these is not about asset management. That's because it's an antivirus, CLAM AV. But the others, So asset managers exist to aid the production process. You can preview, organize, index, delegate, tag, carry out version control, and content logging. One might consider asset managers as a sort of iTunes for media files. There's no need to think about where or how files are stored. This eases the edit process, allowing you to carry out edit prep instead of using expensive edit time, and offering a way to search your media for future reuse or even resale in some cases. Many asset managers will include some sort of rules engine, allowing you to automate your entire workflow, adding further time-saving opportunities.
Optimizing your storage. Yeah, I'm going to take it for now. Optimizing your storage architecture for asset management involves considering the various types of media you store, the media types the asset manager generates itself, and the varied workflows that it's going to support. Media asset management systems typically generate low-resolution proxy viewing copies of the original media files. These proxies are typically used to help speed the editor's job. At a glance, they can provide insight to the often long list of files buried inside a file system, adding context through both metadata tagging and previews of the file's content. As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Of course, it's perfectly possible to simply leverage the storage architecture you already have in place. However, this could be suboptimal, leading to your storage performance and capacity being reduced as proxies and support files take up both space and throughput, which might be better reserved for editing. If your proxies are being used for a review and approve workflow or logging tasks, then it's likely there'll be a lot of scrubbing through these timelines. This scrubbing, even on the smaller files, can eat away at the available throughput the SAN can provide and could result in a degradation of performance for other editors.
Now, as we've discussed, preserving the performance and capacity of your high-speed edit storage platform is first and foremost. Most MAMs have the ability to configure separate storage locations for different file types. A best practice approach is to add a lower cost storage tier to your architecture, dedicated to storing proxies and support files. It's also common to house audio files on a second tier storage, as they're also smaller in size and often have the same usage characteristics as proxies. In order to remain within a single volume, one option is to use affinities. However, you might need to provision a greater capacity in order to meet the technical needs of this approach. If this isn't necessary or desirable, you may wish to consider a NAS solution with its own storage. Going a step further, some MAMs may provide the option of storing proxies on the cloud provider, giving you the ability to keep replicas across geographical locations for faster access in a global operation.
This full facility hybrid storage architecture can be shown here at an international content producer where the workflows cover ingest through archive. At the heart of it is our storage. 0.5 petabyte of Symply Ultra is used for storing assets. Remote media is uploaded to the Symply Ultra via Iconic's cloud-based proxy storage. Telestream transcoders will then generate proxies of the raw footage and push them back to the cloud for access across multiple locations through Iconic's MAM interface. Once an edit is completed and approved, deliverables are made available through this same cloud-based storage, all of which leaves the SAN's performance fully available for edit and other workflow tasks. These same principles can be applied on a smaller scale using the same virtualized software design and strategy.
And this is what we did with the Symply workspace. An embedded instance of Axle AI's MAM indexes and generates proxies of all the content stored on the Symply workspace, giving you the ability to view and manage your content over the local network. With the addition of Axle's reverse proxy service, it's even possible to access your content over the internet.
Yeah.
Today, we've got Axle AI's Neil Blake to tell us some more.
Thank you. It's Neil Blake here. I'm based in London, and I've been asked just to say a few words about Axle and our fantastic partnership with Symply and their workspace product. What Axle does is it lets our customers find their content. Users can scan media folders, and we present that in a very simple web browser. We can tag the content. And just reading to the file here, or the slide here, we can do that automatically with AI tools, so facial recognition, image recognition, speech to text, and we can also do it the traditional way where users enter file-based information or even time-based information that then gets transferred over to the editors. The whole thing about Axle, and always has been, is we make it very simple. It's a very simple interface. It's just a web browser. You open your favorite browser and log in via an IP address, and you have particular access rights and permissions. Users can search for files using our powerful search tools, create shortlists, and then export these shortlists to an editor. Using Connector, we can automate process. So we can automate simple tasks, repetitive tasks, or complex tasks. One example of that is we're working on a large project in Spain for a film delivery platform, and we're delivering content all over Spain, driven by Axle through Connector. And another very important thing about Axle when it comes to low impact deployment is we never modify your files. We don't lock down the storage like other systems do. We don't force you to work in a way that we want you to work. You carry on working in the way you want to work. And we have a very light touch on the files. We just touch the high-res file to create our own browse copy, and then you access the browse copy. And I think I've got one more slide. Here we go, animated.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Axle works is they have it's a web browser interface, so users log in with with their favorite web browser, as I say. This isn't actually my slide, so I'll just make some stuff up about it. The Axle software is embedded in a VM in the workspace. And that has an IP address that the users log into. Creating the shortlists from the web browser, they then export that into the editor, which links the editor directly to the high-res media. And there's also options within Axle to link to browse copies as well.
Yeah, thank you, Neil. I greatly appreciate it for you jumping in on such a short notice and helping us with that as well. One of the questions that we often get is, in the case of Axle, we've done something a little different by embedding it actually into the Symply workspace. But a lot of people say, why did you do that? Because does Axle AI run in the cloud, or is it locally, or how does that actually work? What is the value of embedding it?
It means it's portable. If you're aiming for the on-set market, it means you don't have to carry around a separate computer. Then it needs connected to your network. Obviously, on-set security is of prime importance. So with having Axle embedded on the hardware itself, helps you with the security concerns of external people accessing the system. And it just simplifies the installation for somebody who is, again, on set. They don't have to worry about extra computers and how to connect them up and the IP addresses. Everything is just there and predefined.
Okay, fantastic. We had one more question come in too. Does Axle integrate with editing software?
It does, yes. We play very nicely with Adobe Premiere Pro. We're a Premiere Pro partner. We have a free panel for Premiere Pro as well, so a user can access Axle directly from the Premiere Pro interface and download content into their bins. We also integrate with Final Cut 10 and also our friends at Avid with Media Composer.
Fantastic. That's great. Alan, I'm going to turn it back to Neil. I'm going to thank you very much for joining us today. And
you're very welcome. Thank you.
Notice, so thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you.
And Alan, I'm going to ask you: is there anything else on MAM that people should look for? Tips and tricks to make it work a little faster, a little better, increase efficiency? Anything in there that you can think of?
If you're looking to increase your efficiency, what you want to be thinking about is, are you running your MAM for the purposes of speeding through, of organizing your productions? Are you keeping a media library? Are you mostly working for an edit prep? And depending on what your usage model there is how you want to look at kind of tuning things up. When you're working in like building shot lists and stuff like that, ready to go to edit, then that's something where you want to buy a few more licenses for your Axle AI, because then we ship with 5 licenses, but then you can add more by buying some more licenses from the lovely people at Axle. That way you can have multiple edit preps working for you, edit assists working for you and pulling together shots, producers. But yeah, mostly with your MAMs, you want to look for as much RAM as you can afford, and enough disk space, and make sure that you keep a backup of all your stuff. We've got that all handled inside the workspace, where we have automated backups running across everything, the metadata controllers, as well as the Axle AI database.
Well, that was perfect, Alan, because a question did come in about upgrade options. So a lot of people do see embedded. There are other solutions that embed their own, whatever they are, if you want to call them asset managers. Yeah. And you're really
an upgrade path, yeah.
Yeah, the beauty is you're not locked in. So it's not just for our workspace, it's across the board. Neil, anything else you want to add? And then we're going to jump out.
There's a couple of points here. One key point is at Axle, we're not doing anything proprietary. And when it comes to the upgrade program, we can move from the onboard system to a separate system when required. And we can also extract data. We can export metadata to use in other systems. We can import metadata to be used from other systems. And one point that Alan made was regarding searching for content. Our metadata schemas are very simple to set up and very flexible. So we spend a lot of time with our customers talking about their metadata design. So you might not think it's going to be a problem finding a file tomorrow, but maybe in 6 months' time, what do you need to look for? So it's important to spend time with a piece of paper and a pencil before you go anywhere near your metadata. And also, it's very easy one more thing. It's just very easy for customers to build their own metadata schemas and modify it as their system progresses.
Yeah. And as some of you might be wondering, why are we talking so much about Axle? Why do we talk about hybrid cloud? The reason is we wanted to talk about what the future of really asset managers are. The idea that that we're locking in, or that, as Neil said, that the metadata is locked in, you can't get in or out. We don't believe that's the future. We do know that there'll be newer systems coming. Hopefully they'll come from our preferred vendors, but we do know that you have to have the capability of moving in and out. With that, thank you, Neil. Thank you very much for joining. You'll notice we also have someone new who joined us down below me. And that is our gentleman from Atto Technology, a good friend, someone we've known for a long time. We work with almost on a daily basis. It's Mike Fuller. And Mike is actually a senior technical support specialist with Atto. More importantly, he's a Buffalo, New York resident. So we know that in the winter he'll be snowed in. Did it snow there yet today, Mike?
It's coming. It's coming actually next week, I think. I'm not kidding.
I always enjoy that. Well,
yeah.
You know that Mike has a huge data center background. He's been working with Atto and media and entertainment customers, mostly on the West Coast, for about the last 5 years at Buffalo, in Buffalo at Atto. And reason I mentioned Buffalo, New York, it's where Atto was founded. And I'll tell you, that was way back in 1988 by my good friends Dave Snell and Tim Klein. So it's been quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is we're gonna jump right in, and I'm going to let Mike take over and talk about probably the most important. Let me set it up for you here a second, Mike, before you do that. Mm-hmm. Probably the most important segment that we are talking about, which is really a best practice tips for client performance. So this is really one of the areas that everybody asks us about every day. They ask us about, we have Mac, we have Windows clients, we buy new machines, we get new machines. The one thing we always worry about is making sure we have the right OS and the right drivers and the right pieces. But they do all that, and it's still extremely frustrating because sometimes you just can't tune them. Sometimes you have performance and reliability issues with one system and not with the other. And I think one thing our friends at Atto have done is they've really come down, and they are the de facto standard in the industry. They've come down with tools that everybody can use to help make this so. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Mike. And if you could drive through this, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Alex did a great job of introducing me. Like you said, I'm a senior tech specialist at Atto Technology. So I'm going to take you through a couple slides now, just to talk about what he kicked off there. So this is all about tuning and optimizing from the client side, and it's something that we specialize in. So as has been mentioned, Fiber Channel, it's still regarded as the most robust protocol for media and entertainment workflows. It's not as needy and engineering heavy as Ethernet is. So I'm going to start there. So of course, the trick to getting the best performance with Fiber Channel is multipathing. So you can add as many paths to your storage as you want to get as much performance as you want, limited to whatever the PCIe bus can handle. So multipathing can be handled a number of different ways. And of course, Atto Technology's Fiber Channel adapters have their own multipathing software. It's known as Multipath Director, or MPD. So almost all operating systems have their own multipathing support. But what's good about using Atto's Multipath Director is it gives you cross-platform uniformity. So what's cool about that is if let's say you've got a Windows machine using MPIO, you've got an Apple machine using native multipathing, things like that can cause different behavior across your SAN, and that can cause things like file system corruption or inconsistent failover behavior. So if you're using Atto on all of your platforms, it's all going to behave exactly the same way, and it's going to prevent a lot of those issues. So another cool feature of our MPD software is that we handle things like failover and load balancing automatically. An engineer could go in and dial in their own load balancing algorithms if they wish to, but we optimize and handle everything our own way, and it's very well tested in the lab for the best performance. So an interesting thing about our fiber channel adapters is you can also change the command timeouts. And that's important because let's say there's a million different storage vendors out there. You could be using different codecs, different applications, different host operating systems. And that can cause a lot of different behavior in your SAN. And different use cases will have different tolerances for command being completed, basically. So by dialing in the command timeout, we can allow for much more flexibility to prevent issues like frame drops. And then lastly, kind of an interesting use case, let's say you have a large SAN. We have seen instances where a single host will be much faster than the other clients, and that can cause hogging of resources on the fabric. So with Addo Technologies adapters, you can actually throttle your bandwidth to prevent that, and they have a much smooth, homogeneous workflow across multiple clients. So next up, kind of hanging off that point, I wanted to show you the Addo config tool. So regarding multipath director, this is what you would actually see in our management software if you were to manage one of your hosts. You'll notice a couple of these little pips next to these paths listed are green, and that indicates that those are the active paths. So what you can actually do here is log into a host and look at which paths are active, and if it's got a failed path or a missing path, it'll show up as red. And that's kind of an ideal way to manage your SAN. And another cool thing about this is that you'll notice in the left-hand pane, there's a list of hosts. So you could be sitting in one chair and you can manage your entire SAN this way if you're using Addo products across the board. So that's just a handy way to see the big picture, because if something's not copacetic on one side of your SAN, things can go wrong on the opposite end, and it could take you ages to figure out what the issue is. So to continue on with this topic, I wanted to talk a little bit more about our config tool in a general sense, not just specific to Fiber Channel, because we do deal with Ethernet products and SAS products as well. So using the config tool, you can actually manage all of those things in the same way as Fiber Channel, also from the same pane of glass. So what's handy about that is if you have a mixed workflow, you can handle all elements of that from this application. And like I said before, you can centralize your management to one spot for numerous clients. And last but definitely not least, we definitely improve our code very frequently, and we do a lot of testing, and we add performance improvements a lot and support for new storage vendors. So you want to keep your code up to date at all times. So this is a very handy way to look at all of your systems and all of your adapters and make sure that your code is on the most optimal version. So it's just the most convenient way to do that. And we bring that all to one central location. So next up, MJ did an excellent job talking about mixed workflows, because a lot of times in the media world, we're seeing kind of Fiber Channel and Ethernet duking it out. And it doesn't have to be like that. Mixed workflows are not just possible, it's actually a great idea. It's a good way to save money. So what's cool about our Ethernet products is that they are designed to work in a very friendly way with a mixed environment. So we do this in consideration with SAN, NAS, and direct attached storage environments. And we do a lot of cross-platform testing. As is kind of the theme of the things I'm talking about, it can be the best choice for uniformity in your environment with lots of clients, because all of our products work in the major operating systems, Mac, Windows, and Linux. And additionally, not a lot of folks are doing this, but we do have full Mac OS support for 10, 25, 40, 50, and 100 gig Ethernet. We have adapters for all of those protocols. Next up, this one's huge. It's a piece of software we developed known as Addo 360, and that's going to get its own slide in a minute, so I'm not going to go too deep right now, but it's basically like having an engineer on site, but it's a free piece of software. And then lastly, full RDMA support. So my friends and colleagues here have talked about latency a lot, and a good way to deal with that is to use a technology known as RDMA. So that's basically one system addressing the memory of another system directly without having to deal with all the ancient protocols and transports that are typical with IP workflows. It's only supported in Windows and Linux right now, but the point I want to make is that Addo adapters do Rocky RDMA, which is the alternative to iWarp, which is the other functional way to do that. A lot of our competitors use iWarp, but we've chosen Rocky, which is regarded as the faster and more efficient protocol. So then next up, I wanted to talk about Atto 360. I feel that it deserves its own slide because, as has been mentioned, Ethernet does eat up a lot more overhead than fiber channel. And a lot of folks go and install Ethernet because they notice that they can get, these numbers are bigger, right? 40, 50, 100 gig. It's bigger than 16 and 32 gig fiber channel. So they go and install it. And it's cheaper too in most regards. So what we see commonly is a bit of sticker shock. You go and install a 40 gig card, and as MJ mentioned, you don't see 40 gig. That can be very upsetting to people, and it takes hours and hours and hours of paid engineering time to tune these things and get them performing at any kind of rate which you'd expect. So we save you time and money by doing that with Atto 360 by basically bringing a whole lot of tuning possibilities together in one pane of glass for you. Basically, when you launch Atto 360, it puts you on kind of a dashboard. And what I find with Ethernet issues is there's oftentimes one stupid little issue that's costing you 80 or 90% of your performance. It could be something like you got a firewall on, or you've got IP forwarding, or something's up with your routing, or SMB signings on. So basically, it's a lot like, not to keep the car references going, but it's kind of like the check engine light on your dashboard. So as soon as you launch this, it's going to tell you that you've got one of these issues, and it just saved you a whole bunch of time in tracking that down. And you could see your performance jump incredibly just from fixing that one little thing, which you can also fix it directly in this tool. It does review your NIC and syscontrol settings, so you can look at them and you can change them through this tool, and also tuning profiles. So this is a huge topic as well. So imagine you've got a specific storage vendor, and you know what kind of switch you have, you know what kind of storage you have. Let's say your Ethernet performance isn't so great. You have to do hours and hours and hours of testing, changing settings to try to get the best performance. And the benefit of what we've done here is we've done all that lab testing for you. So over time, we're testing with more and more storage vendors, but basically we're creating these tuning profiles where it's a little button specific to your workflow. So if you click that button, it will automatically apply all kinds of tuning settings to hopefully make it as quick and easy to optimize your workflow for your specific setup. And that's kind of a huge deal, and it's going to evolve greatly throughout the life of this tool. We are testing different vendors in our lab every day, and we're putting in hundreds of hours doing this testing. And then the last point I'll make, this was a much lighter topic, but the basis of this is that you can't improve your performance if you don't understand what kind of performance you're currently getting. So sometime in, I want to say the 90s, Atto developed a disk benchmark test utility for Windows, and it's kind of caught on. To this day, you can go on sites like Reddit and see people posting their Atto disk benchmark results. So we wanted to kind of take that love and create a flashy tool for OS X. So this recently came out. It's a file system-based benchmark utility. We basically made the tool that we felt we needed in our lab. So we do a lot of NAS testing, like I mentioned. So we wanted to make sure you could test against the file system. So that's how it works. It does not do raw disk I/O yet. It does file system-based performance testing. It's a very accurate tool, and you can do cool things with it. Like you can force it to use multiple streams. So if you're testing an SMB share, you can force it to do multi-channel. You can do it against multiple targets at once, and it does have 2 different modes of operation, and each of those modes has its own graphical output. So let's say you're headed for a trade show and you wanted to show off your great performance. There are 2 different ways to do that, and it's very visually appealing, and it's customizable. So hopefully these things kind of show you what we're all about at Atto, and it kind of feeds on what everyone else has been talking about today with mixed workflows and how you can power that and how you shouldn't shy away from that if it's what you need to do. And the last footnote I'll mention is back in 2013 when the Mac Pro 6 was released, the cylindrical one with the Thunderbolt ports. A lot of vendors switched over to making Thunderbolt adapters, and Atto did as well, but we also continued to make PCIe adapters with full Mac OS support. And that's kind of coming back right now because the new Mac Pro 7 has PCIe slots again, and we're fully prepared to support any protocol you need with that Mac Pro in your PCIe slots. So keep that in mind, and I just wanted to say thank you for coming out.
Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. That's actually spawned a whole bunch of questions, probably none that we won't be able to get time to go through, but let's just have a quick look.
Let's get a couple.
Get a couple in. So one question, let me just paraphrase. You were talking about the preset tuning profiles for 360. What happens when you hit the, can you just go into a little bit more detail about those?
Sure. So a lot of it is regarded as secret sauce here, but just to vaguely explain what it does is it's going to talk to a bunch of your settings in your NIC itself. So it's going to change driver behaviors. It's going to do things like turning offloads on and off. In Windows, it'll tweak a couple registry settings, or in Mac or Linux, it's going to touch syscontrol to change your kernel settings. So basically, we are telling the IP stack on your operating system how to respond to different types of traffic. So that's it in a nutshell, and it's different for each storage vendor or each situation that we create a profile for.
Okay, there's a bunch more, but I bet we'd just take maybe actually 360 seems to be really popular, so let's just stick with that one.
Sure.
So do you need to install 360 on each client?
Okay, great question. So right now that is the case. Installing on a single client and monitoring that single system. It does not work like the config tool right now, where you can install it in one location and manage a bunch of systems. And that's because it's a very, very busy tool, and it's measuring network quality. So we don't want it reaching out across the network to measure another system's performance. So right now it's a single client thing. We are talking about possibly making that doable in the future. But for now, yep, it's one client.
And it's just to recap one actually major quick question, which you can answer yes or no. It's free.
Correct. So I should definitely mention this. It does work best with Addo products. So about half of the settings, a little more than half, will actually gray out with third-party NICs. So with Addo NICs, you have full control. And it's not out of spite that we do that. It's that we simply can't manage other people's NICs at that same fine granular level.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
And out of all the storage vendors you deal with, who's your favorite?
Symply, of course.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.
With that, I think hopefully there's a lot of great tips in there. And if anybody wants to reach you after this, how do they reach you?
Yeah, sure. You can reach me at extension 571 at Addo Technologies phone number on our website, or you can reach me at mfuller, Fuller, at addo.com.
Thank you very much, Mike. Okay,
thank you.
Let's jump back through to the rest of this, and I would love to be able to take us through probably one of the areas that a lot of people ask us all the time. They always say, well, I've got a restart happening. I have some time. What do I do? Are there any innovations, any changes, anything new that'll keep the facility at the top? And if we really do have an onslaught, how am I going to manage it? So we just put together a couple upgrades that we feel people in the industry have told us these are the things that have really changed the way they work. But before I do, one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to show you a little ad that we ran a couple years ago that I think pertains to where we are and every one of our customers seem to be. I'm going to read it to you. It's post-production is like riding a bike, except the bike is on fire. You are on fire, everything's on fire, and you're in hell. If you can relate to that, you're probably in our industry. And I think we live there every single day. So let's take it to upgrades that can improve efficiency. First one that we see is consolidation. I think a lot of us, have started with a lot of storage, and we've taken up a lot of room. We've taken up a lot of power. We're not very eco-efficient. There's a lot of cooling involved. Systems do get old. The problem is, we all look at it, we go, it's worked for us for the last 10 years. Why won't it keep working? Well, they're mechanical things. They do wear out. There are greater efficiencies and lower costs with newer systems. And quite frankly, they're just faster. You know, we're all talking about high resolution 4K, 8K HDR. These things do put a strain on what we do. If we want to continue to have long-term reliability, we want to improve reliability, it might be time to consolidate and get to different systems. I think what we've shown here as well today is that greater connectivity comes in hybrid systems, and these upgrades will help that. And Nick and MJ, if you want to say a few words on this, I'd greatly appreciate it as well.
Sure. So one of the upgrades I like to see, honestly, is where looking at what's about to happen with the production restart and the industry saying, okay, we're going to have these rules and everybody can go out and you can do your shoots. There's going to be more stuff coming in. Well, the stuff you had on your system hasn't gone away yet. One thing we can look at that I've actually been getting quite a lot of traction on, a lot of discussion about recently, is either an expansion of an existing file system or existing volume. Sorry, I keep going to the old the Quantum, the StoreNext version. They call it a file system. In Macland, we call it a volume. So expanding that volume, or is it going to be better to add an additional volume so you have like two different namespaces to work with? And that, again, that comes back to what we were talking about earlier with an honest discussion about how you work. But while production is sort of down or about to come back to life, it's a really great opportunity for us to get in there and decide if you need the additional throughput, the additional space, both, and how it's going to best work in your facility to get you back going quicker. So I don't hear. I'm guessing Alex is talking.
No, I was just jumping here to talk about centralization to decentralization. We talked about consolidating, and now we're talking about decentralizing. It seems like that's a little bit against what we just talked about, but it really isn't. One of the biggest things we're seeing in the industry, this is a trend that we've been following for a while, it's a trend that we see as extremely popular, is that we're starting to see larger, older installations break up into smaller workspaces with smaller work groups on the outside. Now, some of these work groups can be remote. They can be in different areas of the facility or in different facilities. And part of this is also on-set and in remote locations. The advantage to this is multifold. The first is that while we used to think the client server model, it's better to put everything in a machine room or a data center and have one point of control where everything is. The problem with that is we rely on that equipment to a greater degree. Now, I've been a fan for a long time, and anyone who's known me has been a fan of everything that we build needs to be extremely good. So no single point of failure, redundant power, redundant cooling, redundant controllers. Everything needs to be redundant. And as you centralize things, you know, it's very easy to say, I almost said something bad here, but I'll say people tend to be foolish when they rely on things that are not redundant for their central workspace or their central data center. Or the problem with that, though, is that you can save an incredible amount of cost if you take and start using other tools like the cloud, like a lot of the tools like Symply Conveyor that we have. It allows you to move content around between various work groups and away from your central workspace. So taking the central workspace where the content needs to be controlled very, very closely, making that your highly resilient content, and then moving other content into work groups where it can be worked on with a smaller work group. That really is a trend. MJ, do you want to add anything to that? Or Nick?
I don't have much to add to that. It really is interesting to see how there is in some environments, and again, that comes back, talk to us. We're, like I said before, I might tell you we're not the right thing, but we do look at what it is you're doing in your environment and how it will best work. Having this decentralized thing and then using a tool like, for example, Conveyor will allow you to have some level of decentralization, but maintaining media assets across multiple rooms or sites or geographical locations. So there is a lot that can be done. And like this graphic shows, that's not necessarily all in one building. It could be. It very well could be all in one building. You just have different little fiefdoms doing their own thing. But this could also be one in London, one in LA, one in New York, one in Rio de Janeiro. It could be all over the place in doing that kind of decentralization.
Yeah, to a certain extent, we're all doing that with some of the remote workers that we have. So we think that's a really important upgrade. The next one is really upgrades that improve efficiency, and this is probably the biggest one. It's client upgrades. And Mike from Atto talked a little bit about the new 2019 Mac Pro and how it's moved back to PCIe. But that's not really where the only upgrade is, even in the Mac side of this. One of the other areas is that, the other product I have on here, I'm just happen to be showing the Thunderlink, which is the Thunderbolt product. But realistically, there are older Thunderbolt 2. It's time to move to Thunderbolt 3. There's faster interconnect technologies that go along with that, including 40 gig and 100 gig Ethernet, not to mention 32 gig fiber. So while a lot of people will, and we see this all the time, people will have older Thunderbolt adapters on systems that are 4 gig or 8 gig. They move to 16 or 32 gig, and all of a sudden their latency drops, their performance increases. We also know from a client standpoint, there are more and more people looking away from the Mac for certain types of clients and looking at Linux in particular and some Windows where certain pieces of software work well. Now's the time to try that out. Now this is a chance to look at that. Now, one of the bigger components to this, and I will always say it's faster and more efficient, and as things get older, reliability tends to go away. We've all seen reliability issues as things get older, but the big one is keeping up with the software, having newer software ability. Am I right on that, MJ? Is that something you would say as well?
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility. Making sure we have good the latest version of software to have the coolest new tricks that are available in the various things. We know Adobe has upgrades to Photoshop and Illustrator that come out every so often, and we really need to consider not only the software and things like that, but there are hardware upgrades we should consider too. You showed that we had like the new Z series there, and then the new Mac. Well, even if you're running on an old thing, remember Windows now has a minimum requirement of, I believe it was 16, it might have been 32. It was just whatever it was doubled. I remember seeing that the base requirement for Windows was doubled over what it was. So even something as simple as I got to put some more RAM in this box is one of the considerations people need to look at.
Now, I want to put Nick on the spot for a second here, because global distribution, obviously, you handle a lot of products other than Symply, and so you must see a lot of these client upgrades happening now. What are you seeing out there, and what's really popular for people?
Well, again, I think it's what you guys have already mentioned, to be honest. There's a lot of, obviously with the start of lockdown, there was a huge sort of scramble to buy mobile drives. Everyone was moving remotely. There were G drives, G-Tech Lassie, very popular as people moved out to that kind of remote workflow, did that ability, as Michael said, going back to the kind of older days of sneaking at UPS or FedExing, hard drives, I think has become much more common than it has done for a long time. We're trying to assist that with the the free offering of Conveyor at the moment that we're running for 90 days, help people sort of get past that kind of clunky FTP. But yeah, it's a lot of customers looking at their network infrastructure. A lot of people looking at upgrading, as you guys have said, that kind of network interface. Make sure they're running on optimum. We'd be surprised how many people are just running still on 4 gig or 8 gig cards, and that's sort of slowing their network.
I've actually seen 2 gig out there recently.
To replace the 2 gig. So that's a consideration. And then it's And then it's, you know, adding extra volume or capacity to their SANs and NASs. So a lot of people also, you know, looking at, you know, taking this time to look at how they're handling their data security, LTO and data, you know, for data security and archive, making the best of kind of what they've got already. So it's, you know, how do I tier that data off my kind of production SAN? What have I got on there? You know, if it's, you know, 0.5 petabyte, you know, I'm not going to get budget to buy another 0.5 petabyte at the moment, but you know, what is that 0.5 petabyte do I need? You know, is that all still relevant, and can I move it off? And we've got various software tools that can assist with that as well.
Do you run into that question that people ask all the time, the ROI question anymore? Like, is the upgrade, how do I get a return on investment on the upgrade?
You know, we've been, you know, everyone collectively here has been in this industry for so many years, and you know, that just so markedly changed, you know, many years ago, that, you know, it used to be the guys in production that just went to the boss and said, hey, I'm out of storage, I need another petabyte or 500 terabytes or 100 terabytes, as it was back then, and it was pretty much, yeah, just sign, check, off it goes. And that just, you know, that doesn't happen now. The decision is made by the finance director, you know, CFO, you know, and the tech people have got to go with a rock solid use case to, this is why I need this extra capacity, because, you know, those days were certainly long gone, and I suspect they're really long gone.
my wife does that for me as well.
Yeah. So, but you know, it's you know, I just encourage, you know, end users, customers, resellers of ours that are on this, you know, use our expertise. You know, we can help you find out what's on your systems, you know, whether we've sold them or not. We're, you know, Michael, Alan, you know, all the other tech guys, we're all here, myself, to help out with all your questions.
Let's move into one more and keep that going if we can, because I think there's one area that a lot of us would probably say, okay, Symply, why are you talking about this? And that is what I call our fourth one, which is more cloud. And of course, as people talk about the cloud, because they're remote, there's a lot of questions: pricing, security, internet costs, vendor lock-in and control. Got to think about those things, and what the model for the cloud is. But the other side of that is the cloud has some benefits: archive flexibility, hosting for AI, short-term job flexibility, and remote enablement. These things are things we need to think about in today's world. And really, as we look at it, it becomes more of this. It becomes a cloud-enhanced workflow where you still have the capabilities of your online, nearline in your facility. This is actually an installation that Michael did recently. I'd say about 6 months ago, right, Michael? This is one of our customers in the U.S. who actually did this type of facility. They do everything in-house, but more and more they're using the cloud for their distributed archive, their remote delivery. I believe they're ingesting remotely, but they still have a large in-facility archive. And so we were able to replace some older storage and move them into the modern age. So this is really where we believe you got to get cloudy, a little bit cloudy out there.
It's a great example of what we were talking about earlier with balance, using the right tool for the job.
Absolutely.
And in certain places, the having stuff up in the cloud is the right place for it. In other cases, you want it on your fast, big honking storage right on site, so your colorist can get the throughput they need to do their job. So yeah, it's using the right tool for the job.
I mean, the number one complaint we get with the cloud is that sticker shock of cost, where we all think that we move from a CapEx model to an OpEx model, and we start seeing that OpEx model is 3x what we thought it was. And certain cloud vendors have done a really, really good job of lowering that cost. Other ones have done a great job of offering better performance. But that's a little bit on the cloud. Now,
we know a few cloud vendors. I mean, and I believe one of them is actually on watching this. So
I'm 100% certain of that. So in taking a note from one of my I would say mentors and bosses in former days is there's always one more thing, And I just want to summarize what we did in a readiness checklist so we can all jump in and do that. And I think this is really something we have to do when we talk about getting ready for the production restart. So first place is obviously where we started. Re-examine your pipeline needs. Is your workflow configured for efficiency? You can go back and look at some of these sections and say, do I have the topology today that I really need? Did I choose right? Did I make a decision to go one direction 3 years ago and maybe I need to update that? Maybe I need to go back, maybe I need to go forward, but is my workflow configured for efficiency? The second is to tune up your clients. I mean, whether they're new, whether they're there, are your clients up to their peak performance? We hear this all the time. I can't say it enough. Everybody's different. You usually one person, one editor will work on one machine, another editor will work on another one. For some reason, they swap machines, and one will say, this is incredibly fast. The other say, this is incredibly slow, and they look identical from the outside. So they're not all created equal. It is a drag race out there. Get your clients at peak performance. Use the tools that Atto has shown us, and the Atto 360 is free, so it's a hard one to beat. I think this is the MAM discussion is really get better access to content. If you can't find the content fast, you can't meet the deadline. I think MJ and Alan brought up a really interesting thing. If you're looking for it, you're scrubbing around for it, it'll affect the entire performance of your workspace. Whether you're an extremely small facility running off a single NAS where you're copying data down to local hard drives, not what I'd recommend for version control and other reasons, or you're a large facility with a SAN, all your performance can be affected by where your content is. So for us, and part of the reason we have a very open strategy with the most popular asset managers qualified on the Symply Ultra, and the reason we integrate that incredible Axle AI into the Symply workspace is we want to start people off from an efficient manner, not to have them think they're going to bolt something on afterward. And I think this is really important. Upgrade what's needed. Do it now before the onslaught. If you wait too long, it's not going to be there. Look for the budget. You know, I'm not saying that global distribution is going to have all the pieces you need, but there's a lot of experts over there. Get Nick on the phone, get Jonathan on the phone from the US here. Talk to him, figure out what you really need, see if it works within your budget. But I'm not telling you have to buy anything, but I'm saying you should be prepared. You might even want to move things around within your facility to put things on in their best area. So you may want to upgrade one system that's not fiber channel to fiber channel. You might want to downgrade a fiber channel system to 10 gig or 1 gig as it's needed. So reuse of components within your organization makes sense. Also, you have to take advantage of the knowledge regarding the limitations of your workflow. Things that you learned during the pandemic. A lot of people thought they were ready for remote. I know my team here, you can't see them, but they're chuckling right now. The number of calls we got when people thought they could just turn the switch and go remote. The amount of traffic of people looking for remote tools. As Nick said, there was a worldwide shortage of not just toilet paper, but also external hard drives for a little while. Not that they should be used as toilet paper, but it was a really crazy time during that. And
consider what's on them in some cases.
Well, yeah. And lastly, most of all, stay safe and healthy and make 2020 the best it can be. And we realize that's not always an easy thing to do. So finishing words from everybody. Nick, let's start with you.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved, to be honest, Neil and Mike for their contribution, obviously, Alan and Michael and Alex. I think it's been really informative. I've actually learned some more things, but yeah, I think it's a question of helping your clients, or if you're a facility, just look at your infrastructure, and this is the chance. It may be the only chance in the near future you've got a bit of downtime. Maybe you're not working flat out to re-examine, and we're here to help with that.
And Alan?
Thanks to everyone. Neil, especially for stepping in last minute, super fast and just man's on the ball every time. Yeah, reiterate, take time to inspect your systems while you've got some time, some downtime to do it. Think about, are you assigning the resources to the right clients to get the best out of your workflow? Take a moment.
Fantastic. And MJ?
I'm really looking forward to the racing season getting go. Oh, sorry, wait, hang on. To the production restart, which oddly is going to happen about the same time. So yeah, the production restart. I think there are a lot of opportunities for the people out there to do exactly what we've been talking to, and I really encourage everyone to use our time, use our knowledge to help you. As I said before, if we're not the right product, I'm going to tell you that it's not the right thing for you. I've done that recently where somebody wanted to use something and I was just like, it's not the right thing for what you're doing. Let's get you the right thing. So please use our time, use our knowledge to help you get back into the restart with all cylinders firing.
There we go. And I want to thank everyone for being here. Contact information is gosymply.com. You can also reach global distribution at www.globaldistribution.com. And with that, I want to thank everyone again. I want to thank everyone again for joining, and we're out.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.